right, man, let's jump into the NFL, right? NFL Week 14 just went down, and we had a couple of interesting storylines. Somehow the Chiefs find themselves at the center of controversy, at the center of attention once again. They had the game against they had their game against I'm blanking out who they just played here. The Bills, right? 325 CBS game goes down to the wire. One of the final plays of the game, we've all seen it, right? The pass to Travis Kelce, Travis laterals back to Kadarius Toney. They score the touchdown. However, a flag on the play, Kadarius lined up off sides. Oh, a penalty you rarely see called. Play comes back, Chiefs lose. All right. So I want to highlight Chiefs fans real quick because I want to get to the larger point about that particular play. I've seen a lot of talk about, the offense, they're getting better. Rashee Rice is getting more snaps. It seems like they're getting a good rotation. They're getting a good, consistent rotation of guys. They just got to stop the stupid penalties. They just got to stop dropping passes. They just got to stop. And I don't know what the 5 stages of grief are. Right? Let me look it up real quick. What are the 5 stages of grief? Because I feel like we are in the denial stage as it relates to Chiefs fans. All right. So let me see. Okay, this is not giving me exactly what I thought in terms of the 5 stages of grief. Are there 7 stages or 5? Y'all help me out. I don't know. Anyway, the Chiefs fans are in denial. We are in week 14, headed to week 15, and even Travis Kelce said, we're going to figure it out. He says, I understand we sound like we sound like a broken record at this point of saying that we're going to get it together. And I don't know how you can have I guess I understand why you have to have optimism, right? Because it's your favorite team. You have to have optimism because it's your squad. You have to have hope. And then in past seasons, where the Chiefs have had these little issues with their offense or with their team in general, they've been able to turn it around and they've been able to make deep playoff runs, if not win the Super Bowl. But as it relates to your offense, penalties are a problem. Execution is a problem. Focus is a problem. And it's been a problem all season long. And I don't know how you can have hope that this team is going to fix those things with only 4 games left in the season, right? And I remember around early October, there was all this talk about, oh man, the Chiefs Arrowhead invitation is on again. We about to have the division wrapped up by Halloween. The Chargers stink. The Raiders stink. The Broncos stink because they were 1-5 at that point. And now you look up with 4 weeks left to play. You are only 1 game ahead of the Broncos. And listen, I don't know if the Broncos will win all their games, but I think if you had this question, which fan base should be more confident that their team can go and undefeated down the stretch, it's the Broncos. Because they should be favorites in all of their remaining games. All right, let me see who they got left on this schedule here. They got nope, almost said the wrong team. They got the Lions. I mean, the Lions are at home. They should be favorites in that game. If not, it should be really close in terms of the spread. But the Lions have been going backwards as of late. They got the Patriots. That should be a dub. They got the Chargers. The Chargers just lost their quarterback for the year. And they got the Raiders. Now, granted, that's a road game to close out the season, but it's still the Raiders who are starting a rookie quarterback. The Broncos should feel very confident that they can win the last 4 games. The Chiefs should feel confident that they can win their last 4 games. The Patriots stink. The Raiders, you were down 14-0 to the Raiders just 2-3 weeks ago. Right? Now, granted, they went on the 31-3 run to close it out, but they were down 14-zip. The Bengals, look, Jake Browning looks like a competent NFL quarterback. So that's not a gimme anymore. And the Chargers, yes, you should beat them because they lost their starting quarterback, right? But again, I don't know how confident I would be as a Chiefs fan when the same issues that have been a problem week 7 are still a problem in week 14. And I don't know how you fix that at this point. Now, let's talk about the play in general here. The Kadarius Toney play. He lines up offside. Patrick Mahomes is going off, and I understand people on the internet want to call him a crybaby. Oh, they're crying. He's the golden boy. He gets all the calls. So I'll address that in just a second. Yes, the officials got the play right, but I do think the Chiefs have a legitimate gripe about officiating as a whole. You had the Jawan Taylor issue where he was being cited for being likely, where when you look across the league, tackles all across the league are lining up too far off the line of scrimmage. Jawan Taylor was being flagged for false starts, where again, I have said this repeatedly, both here and on social media. Lane Johnson is the OG of quick starts. He is always starting a half a second, a millisecond before the ball is snapped and he's moving backwards. And you look across the league. This is happening league wide, but yet only one right tackle was being flagged for it consistently. And that was Jawan Taylor. By now, you've seen the video of Kadarius Toney lining up offside all game long. And I'll say this because Mahomes made mention of it. As far as that particular part of the game goes, I can equate what Toney was doing to when you take the SAT. And when you take the SAT, at least when you used to, I'm old, so maybe they don't do this anymore. You used to get points for spelling your name right. Kadarius Toney, by lining up offside all the time, is not spelling his name correctly. Like that's what's happening with him. He's not spelling his name right on the paper by line. All you got, and my thing with Toney is he's in the slot. So all you got to do is look down at the ball and go, man, is my head even with that ball? If my head is even with that ball, that means my foot is likely even with the ball. If not past it, I need to take a step back. So there's that. But I think the Chiefs do have a right to be upset with the officiating. I have tweeted out several times this year that the NFL has a refereeing problem because there are times when obvious penalties. I'll talk about the Chiefs against the Packers, right? Obvious pass interference call. Now, the call on Mahomes where he gets the roughing, the unnecessary roughness penalty because he gets hit on his way out of bounds. That's a bang bang play, and the officials are going to always look to protect quarterbacks, right? So while it's the wrong call, bang bang play, I get it, right? But then you look across the league, man. As a Niner fan, I felt the game against the Browns was not officiated well on both sides, but it definitely didn't benefit the Chiefs. The Niners. And so with the margins being so slim between who is good, because there is no great team in the NFL this year. The Niners are probably the closest we have to a great team, but even they are capable of hiccups. So without there being a clear, in a way, great team in the league this year, the margins are thinner than ever before. These calls are game-altering calls. Now, the Chiefs had opportunities to win the game against the Packers. They had opportunities to still get into field goal range or to score a touchdown against the Bills. They didn't do it. However, when you are missing these calls, that messes with the mentality of a team. It really does. And so it is incumbent upon the NFL to do whatever they can to fix this. To me, the big fix is you need to have what is called, like in soccer, they have a video assisted review model, right? That will take the time to check a play to see if a potential handball has happened, if a red card needs to be assessed in a match. To me, the NFL, you got the home office who's watching every game as it is. If they get a call wrong, the NFL VAR should step in and say, hey, that was pass interference, guys. Like, we want to make sure that we are officiating these games correctly and that we are being fair to all teams to give them an opportunity to compete for a championship. Because that Packers game, this Bills game could be the difference for the Chiefs between having home field advantage and playing a game in Arrowhead or having to go to Baltimore or Miami or potentially Jacksonville, right? Like these are the differences between winning and losing. And as Roger Goodell came out and said today that, well, I don't understand what all the hubbub is The officiate, the call was the right call. Our officials do a great job. They do a pretty good job. It's not excellent. It's not great. Whatever adjective he used to describe their performance. Because the thing that the NFL's got to be careful of is some fan or fans getting screwed out of a gambling bet that they've made and deciding to file a class action lawsuit against the league. To me, that's the thing they've got to be careful of. And they've got to get this cleaned up because at some point, some fan, and they've already tried it once, right? Some fans try to get together and file a lawsuit against the league because they felt that the Bengals did not disclose that Joe Burrow's arm was hurt. He ends up tearing a tendon and he's done for the season, right? And so at some point, Dad, what's going on? At some point, an official is going to blow a call in a playoff game, in a do or die game, in a regular season, or the playoffs, or the Super Bowl, and a large contingency of people who have money on the game are going to try to sue because they're going to say, because of the incompetence of your officiating, it cost me money. And because it cost me money, I want my bread back. I want what I lost because of you. Now, maybe the courts throw it out. Maybe the courts say, hey, this is the risk you take when you gamble, so on and so forth. But the NFL has at its disposal right now the ability to not allow the 2 or 3 calls a game that end up being the talking points of that following week not happen. And they're doing nothing. They're just letting it happen. They're just letting bad calls stand because, well, they're the NFL and you're going to watch. Okay. Don't test the collective wills of people. Don't, especially as it relates to their pockets. That's all I'm saying, Roger. Somebody let Roger see this segment. Hey, you might want to talk with the officials in the offseason about having a VAR system in place to look at roughing penalties, to look at pass interference. To me, those are the 2 big ones. Those are the 2 big ones that they need to have oversight on because those are spot fouls in the case of pass interference. There are 15-yard penalties, automatic first downs on roughing and unnecessary roughness calls, especially on quarterbacks in the pocket, and sometimes they do not get them right. And in a sport where rules are black and white, shout out to the show, there is no gray area with NFL rules. You need to make sure if there's no room for nuance, if there's no room for gray area, if it's either a foul or it is not, you need to make sure that you are getting not just the small ones right, but also the big ones. Y'all let me know what y'all think, man. What should the NFL do about its officiating system? Is it perfectly fine? Does it need some type of reform? Does it need some type of change? Does it need a review system in place to have some type of oversight for these type of calls? Let me know what y'all think, man. All right, man, let's keep it moving. So let's talk about the Cowboys real quick. Let's talk about the boys real quick, man. So the Cowboys, they had a huge game Sunday night. They defeated the Eagles. Forgive me, I don't know the final score. I think it was like 30-13 or something like that. And guys, do we got to start taking the Cowboys serious? I feel like we got to start taking the Cowboys serious. Shout out to my uncle. He says hire full-time referees. I don't think that fixes the problem, by the way. I don't think hiring full-time referees is the fix for this issue. I do think they need a video review over top of it. But back to the Cowboys. I'll put it to you like this. Now this is a terrible analogy because the Cowboys have had more success than the team I'm about to mention. 2014, 2015, I living in Kansas City. I'm a Cubs fan, but I'm not a supporter of the Royals. I don't really care if they do well or not. It's better for the city when the Royals are good. But they got to be 2014. They got to be really good. They were a wild card team. They ended up making the World Series. They lose in Game 7 to the San Francisco Giants. And during that run, I said, listen, hey Royals, don't play with my friends' hearts here, because I have several friends who are super Royals fans. They're really into the team, and I'm like, look, don't play with their hearts. Don't build their hopes up just to crush them, right? And I say over the years, the Cowboys, over the last, like, since during the Dak era, right? They have played with the hearts of the fans of their franchise. They've gotten their hopes up. First of all, it's not like it takes a lot to get Cowboys' hopes up because every year they think they're going to the Super Bowl. Every year they think they're going to win the Super Bowl. So it's not as if it takes a lot to get their hearts and their blood pressure pumping anyway. But there have been times, moments of over this Dak era where they've been really good, and they have gotten the hopes of their fans up that they could be something more, right? And so, they are now what, 10-3. They just had a huge win over the Eagles. They are pretty much unstoppable at home. They now lead the division. They're the number 2 team in the NFC behind the Niners. And I think it might be time to take this team serious. I don't know if the Niners go on the road to San Francisco, if they can beat them. I think they're definitely going to be motivated if they go to San Francisco. I do think they have the confidence that no matter if they have to, let's just say they lose their next game, right? I don't know what their schedule is, and I can look it up real quick. But let's just say they lose one more game, they end up as a wild card team, not a division winner. They have the confidence with how they played in Philadelphia and how they played at home against Philadelphia that if they have to see them, that they can beat them. But their schedule is really tough. They got Bills, Dolphins, Lions back to back to back. Only one of those games will be at home. They're at Buffalo, at Miami, back to back. And again, I think we have to take the Dallas Cowboys for the first time in a long time as a serious threat to win the NFC. And I think they now have the confidence outside of San Francisco that if they go to Philly, they go to Detroit, they go, oh, God forbid, they have to go to like Atlanta or some terrible NFC South team to play in the first round of the playoffs, that they can win and compete and beat anybody. To me, the last hurdle, the final step for them is they got to beat San Francisco. They got to be competitive. They really haven't been competitive with San Francisco in the last 2 games. But yeah, I think the Cowboys are a team that we have to take serious. Dak, granted, while I don't think a quarterback should be the MVP, Dak is playing at an MVP level. Dak I think, is the leading candidate for MVP. And I think listen, the last thing I want is the Cowboys to win a championship because on the list of insufferable fan bases that could potentially win a championship, they are number 1 with the bullet. Absolute, like you do not want them to win a title because the gloating, the pats on the back, the we them boys, it is going to be a lot, guys. Listen, my dad is in the comments now. The Cowboys will win the Super Bowl this year. That's their default setting, people. Like this is their default setting, but this team gives them good reason to believe that this could, in fact, be the year. And listen, the Eagles have got some soul searching to do. They went through their gauntlet mostly unscathed. I think they went 4-2 on this huge stretch they had, and salute to them. But they've got some things they got to figure out as it relates to the best 2 teams in the conference right now that they're competing with for a championship. So oh man, my uncle said if we win the Super Bowl, the internet better shut down. And I'll say this about the NFC as a whole before I jump to the next topic. To me, the best teams in the NFL reside in the NFC. Shout out to Baltimore, but if I had to have my own personal power rankings, to me it's the Niners, it's the Cowboys. I guess I should take Baltimore at 3, and then I would put Philly at 4. To me, those are the top 4 teams, and then pick a team for the 5th one. Dolphins, Chiefs, Lions. Pick a team for 5. Who cares? But to me, those are the 4 best teams in the NFL, and 3 of them are from the NFC. And so, to me, if any 3 of those teams win, no matter who the opponent is on the AFC side, they should be the betting favorite in a Super Bowl matchup. So we'll see. But speaking of MVPs, great quarterbacks, great quarterback play, Cam Newton had some comments he made about Tua Tagovailoa, Dak Prescott, and Brock Purdy. And he said that they are game managers, that they are not game changers. And that has caused a lot of chatter on social media. And let me say this: Dak Prescott is playing really high level football right now. Brock Purdy is playing really high level. Like in almost every advanced metric you care to name, Brock Purdy is either one or two. If he is not one or two, he is likely top five or top 10. And first of all, let me say, when did being a game manager become a bad thing? Why is it a bad thing if you are simply a game manager? Right? Like everybody can't be Mahomes. Everybody can't be Josh Allen. Everybody can't be, I'll throw Joe Burrow in that mix. Everybody cannot be top tier elite quarterbacks. And if you are hoping to find that, you are going to be desperately disappointed because it is really hard. Those are one-on-ones, right? They don't make those every day. Those models are not coming out on the showroom floor yearly, right? These are once a generation quarterbacks. And so if you can find a Dak Prescott who can distribute the ball, keep the turnovers down, lead drives, get your team into a place where they get a lead and your defense can now pin its ears back and go after the quarterback. What is wrong with that? Like I really don't. I really am truly trying to understand what is wrong with that. That's number one. Number two, as a Niners fan, I need y'all to stop fronting on Brock Purdy. Like, listen, shout out to Nick Wright, shout out to Steven Ruiz from the Ringer, and whoever else is out there still not believing in Brock Purdy. That's first of all, that's your right, right? That's your prerogative. But to me, you can no longer continue to front on these gentlemen, right? I get it. Brock Purdy has an all pro left tackle, all pro tight end, all pro wide receiver. Brandon Ayuk, if he was on a team that wasn't as run focused as the 49ers, would probably be a top five wide receiver in football. I want to say that again. Brandon Ayuk, if he was on a different team that was more pass focused, would be a top five wide receiver in the game. He is that good, right? But when you have all these other players around him, and last but not least, you got an all-pro wide receiver in Christian McCaffrey and a great defense and a great, like, why do we have to apologize? Why should he have to apologize for those things? Why should Dak have to apologize for having an ascending tight end in Ferguson, or having a Pollard, having a good defense? Why do they have to apologize? It's a team sport, guys. Hello. It's a team sport. So, yes, you need all of those pieces because you look at what's happening in Kansas City. You look at what's happening with Mahomes, and he is essentially being told, you have to make it happen for everybody on offense. Because if you don't make it happen, it's not going to happen. And you look at the frustration that he's having right now when he's looking at wide receivers line up outside, when he's looking at tackles being set ineligibly, when he's looking at tackles getting holding calls, when he's looking at offenses bogging down, drop passes, all of this, and it is boiling over for him because it is not getting fixed. If the Kansas City Chiefs simply could have receivers who could hold on to passes, they might have one loss this year. One. So, no, Brock Purdy should not have to apologize for having great talent around him because guess what, guys? He still got to deliver the ball to him. Tua still has to deliver the ball to those weapons. Dak still has to deliver the ball. And so whether they are scheming themselves open, whether it's great route running, great schematic setup against a defense, whatever, you still got to make the plays. And those guys are doing it. And they're doing it. This comment says it. Purdy is a top level QB in the NFL. I have to give him that. They're doing it at the highest of levels. And they should not have to be made to feel bad or apologize or knock down a peg simply because they have great talent around them. That is the purpose of having a team, a GM, to build a roster that is set up in such a way that you don't need superhuman efforts from your quarterback to win games because it is a team game. And if you look across the landscape of the NFL at the teams that make the Super Bowl and that win the Super Bowl, there are people there who are not elite all time quarterbacks. Brad Johnson, Rich Gannon, Joe Flacco, Eli Manning, not Chris Winkie. I can see Jake Delhomme, Matt Ryan, Nick Foles. Like the list goes on and on and on. You need a great team around you. And if you have a great team around you, then you can take a Brock Purdy and go to you can take a Jimmy Garoppolo, my God, and go to a Super Bowl. My aunt says Purdy is crazy. He plays on a rookie contract next year. He's definitely outplayed his contract. I have to look up how that works. I think he might be eligible for a new deal after this season, or it might be one more season. All of those things that I've said aside, the Niners should be wary of signing Brock to a major deal. Should he get a raise? Absolutely. Should he get Mahomes level money? Absolutely not. Because I do think signing that type of deal then means the level of talent around him slips. And yes, his play will slip some. To what degree it slips is up to him, right? Because here's the thing about a quarterback: the quarterback can elevate the level of play. And I think you've seen all of those gentlemen do that at certain times this year. But when you start pulling pieces off the board, you're asking at that point your quarterback to make up for whatever we lose on the offensive line, at the skill positions, on the defense. Whatever we lose there in terms of top tier talent, you have to make up that difference. And that's where the Josh Allens of the world come into play. That's where the Mahomes and the Burrows come into play, because you can take these things off the table for those guys and they can still make it happen. Yes, he's earned a raise, but I mean, he's not going to be able to get a raise without this comment says I'm saying a raise, not top QB money. Yes, he's earned a raise for sure, but you're not going to take him from 800,000 to 15 million and think that's going to be enough. It's going to be in 20-25 million dollars. To me, when you get into 30 for Purdy, to me that now that's too rich for my blood personally. But his play has warranted that kind of money. So we'll see what happens on that standpoint. Let me see. Are there any games worth talking about here in Week 15? I do not think so. I mean, nah, nah. I think I'm about to call it a night, guys. I'm looking. I mean, Cowboys, Bills and Eagles, Seahawks are going to be interesting because of the NFC East race. Bills. So I'll say this about the AFC. Bills, Bengals. I put up a poll at Brains and Bars on Twitter around weeks 8 or 9, and I asked the question: if you had to place a bet on which team is going to make the playoffs at this point, because at that point, I think they were both below 500, who would you take? Bills or Bengals? The poll results favored the Bengals over the Bills. I personally thought the Bills were in better shape because I thought their schedule was not, the gauntlet was not as steep for them as it was for the Bills. And I thought their division was an easier climb given the Jets and the Patriots. Right now, I believe those two teams are 10th and 11th place. I still believe that the Bills can make the playoffs just because, one, they still have their starting quarterback. Two, because teams like the Pittsburgh Steelers who are starting to fall off. Their ride is turning back into a pumpkin. But it'll be interesting to see if those two teams can make the playoffs, because they have dug themselves into a huge hole. They're going to require a lot of help to make it to the playoffs. However, if by chance they should happen to make it to the playoffs, the Bills in particular, for me, that is the team that I think can come out of the AFC and go to the Super Bowl. Because if you look at this right now, here are the quarterbacks that are currently in the playoff picture: Lamar Jackson, Tua, Patrick Mahomes, Trevor Lawrence, whoever the Cleveland Browns are starting right now, Joe Flacco, Mitch Trubisky, or Kenny Pickett for the Steelers. The Colts with Gardner Minshew. CJ Stroud's a rookie. Russell Wilson, they're not asking him to do a lot. And then the last team in front of Buffalo is Jake Browning, right? Like, obviously at the top, it's a top-heavy list, but I think the Buffalo Bills can compete with the Baltimore Ravens. I think they can compete. They already blown out Miami once. They beaten Kansas City. They can complete. They lost to Jacksonville, but they can compete with Jacksonville. They can beat, like, to me, they have, shout out to Lamar Jackson, they have the best quarterback remaining, because when Josh Allen is on, he is Thanos, and he is incredibly hard to stop. So I don't know what's going to happen in the AFC. I think part of the optimism of Chiefs fans is they're looking around at the quarterbacks who are competing for playoff spots and Super Bowl spots, and they don't see a lot of names that they fear. I would caution them by saying this: your team is asking your quarterback to put its entire team, at least offensively, on its back and carry it. There's no room for error offensively for the Chiefs. For all of these other teams, including teams like that's too far. But the Jaguars, the Bills, the Ravens, there's margins of error for them because their skill position players are more reliable than what's happening in Kansas City. So I'll be curious to see what happens on that end, and see how these AFC playoffs shake out. I think there's a clear hierarchy at the top of the NFC. You got the Eagles, Cowboys, and Niners. And then there's the next level, and then there's everybody else. But we'll see what's going to happen, man. Y'all let me know what y'all think. Hit me up at Brains and Bars. Who do you have at this juncture being your Super Bowl representative? If I had to put two names out there, I would go Baltimore and San Francisco. I do think those are the two most complete teams in the NFC and AFC respectively. So if I had to make a choice at this going into Week 15, Baltimore, San Francisco. But hey, these things, it's a week-to-week league, and these things change on a dime. Y'all let me know who y'all think. Who y'all got going to the Super Bowl this year at this point? Yeah, will that change for you depending on what happens in Week 15? Hit me up at Brains and Bars on Twitter or Facebook, and Instagram. That's the show for tonight. I'm out of here. I'm a little pooped from all the Mexican travels, Puerto Vallarta living. So I'm about to get up out of here, kick it with the family for the rest of the night. Y'all be easy. How y'all be easy. Please remember, you can check out every episode of It's a Black and White Thing. Going to the podcast app of your choice, searching for It's a Black and White Thing or Brains and Bars. You can also follow us on YouTube. Shout out to those who watch me on YouTube, at Brains and Bars. Rate, subscribe, comment, share. I appreciate everybody who joins me each week. Try to have this episode up tomorrow. Until next time, y'all be easy. Good night.